Hey guys, it's Charlene. Today I'm sharing with you this beautiful card featuring some of the new products from Altenew. So let's get started. I'm working with the Craft a Flower Stargazer Lily die set. This is a beautiful die set, very detailed, and I'm going to be sharing with you tips and tricks on how to get a very realistic outcome with your flower dies. For the flowers, I'm going to be using the Red Sunset Fresh Dye inks. There's several colors here. I'm starting out with the blush, which is a very pale pink. And I'm using some of the mini blending tools. These are new to me and I'm really enjoying them so far. So I'm coloring all of the petals with that blush, and that's going to give me an all over color base to start with, just getting some ink down onto the cardstock. Next, I'm going to come in with the detail blending brushes. I've used these before in other videos and I love them. They are really great for adding little detail areas because they're so small and they're angled as well. I'm using the crimson ink with this brush in order to brush in some darker details on the petals. So all I'm doing is going from the center out, and you can see that naturally is going to give me a dark to light effect when I'm pulling the ink out from the center of the petal. Once I get a good amount down, I'm actually coming back in with the blush, which is that lighter pink color, and I'm going over that whole area again with the detail brush because that's going to pull out all of that beautiful crimson color, and it's actually going to ink blend it into the blush base that we did for our first layer of ink. So even when you're working with small die cuts like this, where you're adding detail, you're still ink blending. So you do want to go back and forth between colors in order to get that seamless look that you're looking for. You could stop here and your flowers would look beautiful, but if you really want to have some highly detailed florals, I recommend using a third color as well. I'm using the color Velvet, and again using the detail blending brushes, and I'm tapping it towards the base of the flower petals, and then I'm also using the angled side of the brush to bring the velvet up just through the center of the petal and towards the edge. It's going to give me that beautiful depth because that dark color is towards the base and towards the center of the petals. Now, Altenew's dies always have a lot of detail to them. They're such pretty dies, and this one is no exception. So if you ever look at a lily, you'll see that it has a lot of these little dots towards the center, as well as the lines that go out towards the end of the petals. So rather than ink blend here, I'm actually doing a little bit of watercoloring with that velvet ink. So what I've done is I have smushed out a little bit of the ink onto my glass mat, and then I've added a little bit of water, and I'm using a very fine tip paintbrush. And I'm taking my paintbrush and just dabbing it in the ink and then hitting all of those detail marks that are in the die cut. It's really easy to do, but it gives such a beautiful look. So I've hit all of the dots in the petals, as well as the little strips that go from the base of the petal out towards the edge of the petal. And you can see how that really elevates everything. Once all of my detail work is done, I'm coming back in again with the blush and just doing some blending here to get everything to look a little bit more seamless. Now for the pistil, stamen, and sepal, those are the other small parts that are part of the lily. I'm coming in with some green distress inks and I'm using my mini blending brushes. Now, since I made this video, Altenew actually came out with another set of fresh dye inks called Green Fields, and those would have been perfect here. So I'm coloring everything kind of with an all over color of the Twisted Citron, and then I'm coming in with Shabby Shutters as well as some mowed lawn and rustic wilderness to kind of give everything some dimension and darken up the edges. So you'll see here I'm coming in with that rustic wilderness and just blending it on each side of those pieces so that towards the center it's light, but towards the edges it's dark. For the little tiny pieces, the anthers down there at the bottom, I'm actually using some crackling campfire, which is a nice dark orangish red, and it works well here. Before I move on to putting the florals together, I'm going to use some of the Dewdrops ink from the Sweet Dreams set of fresh dye inks, and I'm going to ink blend my background. I'm coming in with a very light hand with the dewdrops, and I'm actually using some small ink blending tools. These are a little bit larger than the mini blending brushes, and they tend to work well when you're trying to cover a larger area. The dewdrops color is kind of a pale blue-green. It lends itself more towards the green side, I feel like, so it works really well in contrast with the pink because they're essentially split complementary colors, because pink is just a shade of red, and then you have that nice green tone of the dewdrop. I'm going to add a little bit more to my background later, but I'm going to pop back over to putting my florals together here. One thing I really love about Altenew dyes is that they have this cool keyhole design, which makes it really easy for them to put together. You just line up each layer with that keyhole, and it's very easy to do. You add a little bit of glue towards the center and then just add your petal on there. So you can see the first flower is coming together really easily, and what I did when I was putting everything down on my sticky mat before I even started ink blending anything was I made sure to line up the die cuts so that they were kind of in order based on flower. And the packaging that Altenew includes with their dies is really good about showing you which one layers up with which piece for each flower. It's not as difficult as you would think because they do everything step by step on the packaging. It's just really easy to follow. Once I was done putting together all of the petals, I did the same thing with the pistil and stamen and the little anther pieces, which are part of the stamen, and that put together my first flower. I repeated the process with my other two flowers using that awesome keyhole design that Altenew has incorporated into the dies. And now I have 3 beautiful flowers to go ahead and put onto my card. These look so gorgeous since I added all of that extra detail. They really look lifelike. Now, is it some extra work? Sure, yes, it absolutely is. But the result that you get is just gorgeous. I went ahead off camera and arranged my flowers along with the sepals, and I laid down some press and seal and got everything nice and secured on there, and then set it off to the side so that I can go ahead and add a few more details to my background. I put some low tack tape down where I know I'm going to stamp my sentiment. And then I'm coming in here with some black spray just to add a few splatter details. I think it really elevated the card in the end. And then I'm stamping out the beautiful Thanks sentiment from the Sketched Florals stamp set. I've been using this stamp set quite a bit. I really like it. Then I can go ahead and put together my whole card. I'm using a thin black matting layer around my background piece. Again, I like to use something as a border that ties in with my sentiment or some other color on the card. I find that it helps to make the whole card a little bit more cohesive. And then I've got some of the Altenew foam tape, which I've been using this a lot more lately. You guys have seen me use it in my videos. I like the profile of this foam tape. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, and it works really well for popping up layers, but still being able to put your card in an envelope. So I've decided to pop up the whole base. You can see I added a couple of strips of the foam tape there, and then I'm just partially bending back the release tape. This is going to make it so that I can easily line up everything onto my card base. This is an A2 size card, so it's 4¼ inches by 5½. And all I do is once I get everything nice and lined up, I go ahead and push down on the top, remove the rest of the release tape, and then I can just push down on the rest of my card. And this always helps me to get a perfectly centered piece on the front of my card base. It's a great way to do it. So now I'm going to go ahead and use some low tack tape to tape down my card base and that background panel before I come back in with my florals that are still on the press and seal. So then I've gone ahead and pushed down on the left-hand side of the press and seal, and that gives me a nice hinge to work with so that I can glue down each layer independently without having to worry about things moving around on me. So you can see I've glued down here the sepals, and then when I pull back up the press and seal, I'm just careful to make sure that those stay on the card. So that way I can then add some glue to my next layer, whichever floral is on the next layer. Once I had gone through and put down all of the different layers with some liquid glue, I did go ahead and pop up the topmost floral with some foam tape, and that just creates a little bit more dimension on the card, makes it a little more interesting to look at. And once I was finished with that, I could go in with my foam tape and just cut out some small pieces and add them here and there behind different petals in order to create some extra dimension within the florals on the card. This really elevates your card. It makes those florals look that much more lifelike. I definitely recommend doing it. If you're not using foam tape, you could also do this with scrap pieces of cardstock. Just layer up a few, glue them together, and then you can glue them behind the petal in order to give you that dimension within the petals on the flowers. So here's my finished card. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Now this video is part of a hop for the July 2023 Marvelous Monthly Series. There's a lot of fun giveaway prizes as a part of this hop, so be sure to check the details down below in the description. I also have listed all of the participants in the hop, so be sure to check out everyone's channel, subscribe, comment, and get entered for this fabulous giveaway. Until next time, happy crafting.